So I wanted to make a part two to my loneliness video because a part of me feels a little angry at my ex because she has dozens of family members and she probably has well into around the dozen friend sorry. She has about a dozen friends, most of them coworkers. And meanwhile, I have a small family, about a third to a quarter the size of hers, spread across 4 states, including the one I'm in. Um, And I have a few friends, and my coworkers are all geriatrics, because I'm on leave of absence, and I'm just depressed being around them all the time. Sorry to say, but a person who's around twice my age, I really don't have much to relate to you. I'm sorry. I'm putting that out there. We're completely different generations. Some of us have the same interests, but a lot of the times they just talk about work. And it's depressing. But I can't be angry at her because I'm starting to realize the way I talked to her and treated her, and it is reminiscent of what I had just subtly picked up growing up with my mother and my father. And I never really knew it was, I spoke in a condescending way, or, I had this attitude about me until I started observing it recently. But, I wanted to kind of explain my circumstances. When I was young, around elementary school age, I was very antisocial. My mother took me to therapy because she saw I was having a very difficult time making friends. I barely spoke, I barely talked to anyone. And so, went to therapy. My mother thought after a while it helped, but the same antisocial tendencies stayed with me, well into my college years. I barely made any friends. My best friend is actually probably one of the only friends I've had since high school. One of my other friends, he lives in Dallas, and I met him around my senior year of high school. And the funny thing is, he actually reached out to me. He was the one to talk to me first. But, I only have a handful of friends. Meanwhile, I just feel a little envious that, my ex is having such a huge support network. And meanwhile, I'm stuck in a household where I'm constantly reminded of 2 deaths. This is the household where my grandmother pretty much died. I mean, she was taken to the hospital, but she died at the hospital later. And this was the household my dad used to live in before he moved out on his own and died shortly after from a heart attack. I was in school at the time, by the way, so I didn't find out till after school and after work that day. So, before I even had time to eat dinner. And granted, this was before I started working out. I mainly work out as a way to cope with his death. He liked lifting weights, and I decided I would try it one day, and I've loved it ever since. I like seeing how strong I can get, just strength to weight ratio. I like to see how much I can actually lift before I get too old. I also don't want to be in a wheelchair when I'm old, so I still want to have strength. Another reason why I'm doing it. But throughout my life, I've always felt lonely. I never really hung out with a lot of people, and the friends I did hang out with, we would rarely ever hang out. My mother was always a shut-in, and my dad always worked when he came into my life. My mom worked also on the weekends. Whenever she was home, she was asleep in her room or didn't really do much, didn't really interact much with me. Maybe when I was a kid, but as I got older, I was kind of just on my own. And I'm not doing this to shame her or anything. I'm just saying I really just felt like I had no one to talk to or no one to understand me. I had a hard time understanding people and their emotions too. I'm not always logical, but I'm more of a logical creature, and I see everything from a more what's the word, objective lens. I try not to throw too much emotion into everything, but we're human, we can't help it. But then as I grew older, instead of making friends at school by talking to them, playing PE, or playing cards, I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid. I would make friends then. I used to play on the old school game consoles. Would play with the neighborhood kids. Nowadays, everyone just meets online. It's kind of hard. So, I've pretty much been alone most of my life. I didn't have a lot of friends, and now I just feel totally alone, and it hurts. You know, I wish I could talk to my ex. I wish I could tell her that I'm starting to understand. I wish I could tell her that I'm sorry, and that I do want to change for myself, because I hate being like this. My depression got worse since the breakup. I've been getting suicidal ideations today, but I've been trying to fight it, but this existence just feels so monotonous and horrifying. To top it off, I just feel alone. Even when I'm at a coffee shop or at the gym, I'm surrounded by other people, and I just can't find the courage to talk to any of them. So yeah, thought I would just make another video talking about loneliness. Thanks for listening.